Good Sunday morning there, YouTube. Welcome back to the porch, and welcome back to my third vlog. Today, I'd like to go ahead and talk to you guys when I got a few minutes before me and the wife gotta go some places, go run some errands. I'd like to talk to you guys about Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming is the sixth in the Spider-Man movies to come out. It is made by a joint venture between Sony and Marvel. The reason why it's a joint venture between Sony and Marvel is because Sony actually owns the rights to the Spider-Man franchise. If they were to not make a Spider-Man movie every certain amount of years, they would lose those rights and they'd go exclusively to Marvel. So that's why they have teamed up with Marvel to make this. Now, as far as casting, I thought it was a really good job with casting. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau were great in their roles that they were, I can't remember the word for it, but that they were bringing back. I loved Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I thought he was kind of menacing, kind of mean, kind of an asshole, but, you know, played it well. I thought Tom Holland made a good Spider-Man. He's young, which I enjoy. The one thing I didn't like about Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield is they were both in their 20s. I think Andrew Garfield was literally 28 when he played 18-year-old Peter Parker. And Tobey Maguire was 27 when he was supposed to be playing, or he was 26 when he was supposed to be playing a 16-year-old Peter Parker. So I liked that he was young. I like that Tom Holland is only 18 or 19 years old. He's still playing back a few years. He's still playing a 15 or 16-year-old. But it gives him a much better understanding of how a teenager actually goes through. The action sequences I actually really liked. There was a lot of really cool close-up action of him, a lot of action where he was, you know, kind of just swooping around, being kind of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, you know, and it was awesome to see the beginnings of a hero, because we'd gotten the origin story 2 different times now, and this time they kind of skipped the origin story and they really went into the beginning of his crime fighting. You know, him accidentally making a mistake and accidentally getting somebody who he thought was breaking into a car. Well, it was his own car, and he just locked his keys in the car. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they included that as well. They also included him, you know, giving an old lady directions and him stopping a bike stealer, and I really liked that as well. The thing about the action is it got grand at the end, and I think that was cool because it built up to that grand. There's sometimes in those older Spider-Man movies that sure he did a little bit of stopping some robbers here and there, but I think he kind of learned his place that this is where I need to be, is stopping these smaller crimes. And at the end, he stops the grand, and, you know, spoiler alert, of course, at the beginning of this episode, that there is he kind of stopped the Vulture in the end, but he said no to Tony Stark when he offered him a chance to join the Avengers. He told him no because he knew that he had more things that he could be doing better as just a small-time hero on the streets. I also really liked the end, you know, at the very end, there's a post-credit scene, because it's a Marvel movie and there has to be a post-credit scene, where he puts on the suit when his Aunt May sees him in the suit. I thought that part was really funny. Speaking of Aunt May, I actually really like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. You know, at first I was like, am I gonna like her? I feel like she's too young to be Aunt May, but I really think she did a good job as Aunt May. I really do. She was funny, and she was, I think she was well liked, and, you know, she's very pretty, so of course that kind of came up as a joke a couple different times. There was a nice back and forth with her about her and Tony Stark in Captain America: Civil War, and so I liked that a lot. For some of the negatives, one big negative for me was the fact that they didn't give Shocker more of a bigger part in the movie. He was just kind of Vulture's henchman. In the comic book, Shocker is his own villain, and I think that it would have been cool to give him more of a role. Another thing that I didn't like about the movie was the plot got a little jumbled in places. It got a little confusing of where we're supposed to be headed next. And I think in the end, though, the action sequences and the humor of it was pretty funny. That's one thing I did really like about it. is that he was a pretty funny kid. I think Tom Holland had some really funny lines in it, and Tobey Maguire made your occasional joke, and so did Andrew Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield was actually a better. He was funnier than Tobey Maguire was, but I think that in the end, I think Tom Holland had some of the best jokes. I liked his suit, but I did not like some of the AI components of his suit. I understand why they're doing that, but some of the components I was just like, I don't really think that's something that Tony Stark or Spider-Man would have anything to do with. In the end, I think it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was a good popcorn movie. Is it going to win any Oscars? Well, probably not, but that's kind of what I like about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that they're good popcorn movies. They're good movies to sit down and to see it on the big screen. That's one thing that I will stress, is that I feel like people are going to like this movie more if they go see it on the big screen. There's, the action sequences are going to be more fun if you get to see it on the big size. Sure, you can watch it on a big TV at home, but seeing it in the theaters is really cool. By the way, shout out to B&B Theaters. That's where we went last night. For you Kansans, it's over in Shawnee off of Midland Drive. I really liked it because of the way that the seats were made. The seats are basically, instead of having just regular movie theater style seats, they have like recliners. Here's the cool thing: it was only $10 a person. It's not like it's that much more expensive than going to a regular theater. In fact, some of the other theaters around here are even more expensive. I'm not going to name names, but they're even more expensive and they have less comfortable chairs. So if you live in the Kansas City area, go check that out. It's a pretty cool place. And otherwise, guys, I'm going to go ahead and give this movie an 8.5 out of 10 for the humor and the action. Thanks. Have a good one.